Okay, everybody, it's 10:01. So I feel like we should go ahead and get started, although I know people are still um, introducing themselves and signing in on the chat. So please go ahead and keep going with that. But we only have 1 hour, and we're not going to be able to do everything that we want to do in 1 hour, but we can at least start one conversation and connect with each other and maybe get centered. So we are here in our Wayfinding Online, Navigating the Virtual Landscape Together series that 3CSN is putting on. And we're blessed to have this space where we can see the struggle of right now as a great catalyst for learning, and for being in community with each other and for problem solving together. So that's what we are here to do today. The objectives of the series are to be in community in online environments, which in some ways might actually inspire some of our work with students and colleagues, as we all have to be remote right now. We want to learn together, support our professional identities, especially as some of us are more or less comfortable working in these modalities. Just sharing this space and time together can be a real support. And then as a network, a statewide network for 3CSN, we can engage in dialogue, we can build knowledge together, we can struggle together, and we can find out, what should our next steps be? Where do we go from here? What do we need to learn more about? So 3CSN's theory of change is if we provide training on networking and we use action research methodologies, community college professionals will transform their environments and identities to create communities of practice that will produce powerful learning and working across campuses. And that basically, if we work on maximizing our potential as educators, then we naturally will be able to support students to achieve their full potential as well. So again, this crucible that we're in right now, hopefully we can take some good things from it. And one of those is that we can work together to figure out how to do our jobs better, how to support students even more, and how to create more equitable learning environments. And that's the focus of this session. And so, the title, I'm very uncomfortable because it's like equity and online learning. Oh yeah, 60 minutes, we're gonna get there for sure, obviously not. But what we can do is engage in this inquiry together. And so this is what we want to think about. How can we be community responsive in our online teaching? So we're going to take some time and think about community agreements and what it means to engage in a brave space. We'll build a little bit of knowledge together. We've got a little bit of time for that. And then we'll engage in dialogue and figure out next steps from here. And so just one last thing before I turn it over to our very talented Lauren Service, who's going to facilitate much of the meat of our session. We have some community agreements for being in online spaces together. These are, in some ways just kind of tried and true. So for example, if you've got a question or, you need help, typing your question into chat is a great way to go because you won't necessarily interrupt the flow of everything. And we have our Sarah Sullivan here is supporting our session, and she can be monitoring the chat to make sure that she's aware of anybody's question or concern. You also can raise your hand in Zoom. There are things like just kind of, being on mute if you're not talking, because many of us have meowing cats and barking dogs and screaming children in our homes at this time and stuff like that. So these community agreements are just kind of like our basics. Assume best intentions, do your best so that everybody can engage. Keep in mind that we're all learning right now and all under a lot of stress. It's okay to ask clarifying questions. But I'm going to turn it over to Lauren, and I'll actually stop sharing my screen for the moment so that we can actually go maybe a little bit deeper in terms of thinking about our community agreements.
Thanks, Nika. Good morning, everyone. So great to have this opportunity to just be in community with all of you. So Nika just shared some general kind of agreements for us, but we thought it would be wonderful for us to also kind of think about the space really intentionally that we're going to create, at least for this next hour. So I'm going to share with you so in the chat, you'll see it's invitation to Brave Space. So if you could click on it and open it, I'm going to invite you to read it. So we'll spend about 30 seconds just reading it over. Oh, thanks for sharing it, Nika. So I'm going to invite us to come back together again. So what we thought we would do is, can we think about the intentional community that we want to create today so that we can hold a space of curiosity, but also care, and also thinking about the shared value of learning and inquiry. So there is one more document that I shared in our chat here. It's called shared document for today. So there's two ways that we will generate these, our Brave Space agreements together. You can add your ideas to the chat. You can also go into our shared document for today, and you'll see that there's a question that we posted, just what's the intentional community we're going to create today. So if you could post some of your ideas, some agreements, expectations, or things that you need from each other. So if we could spend just about 3 or 4 minutes doing that.
Good morning, Lauren. It's Beth here. I'm not hearing your video.
Morning, Beth.
Moving a little bit slowly this morning, so good to see you.
Good to see you too. So we are looking at Brave Space, and folks are putting in some ideas of how we're going to hold some intentional community together. So we're adding our ideas to the chat. We're also adding our ideas to the shared document.
All right, great.
Awesome. Super excited you're here. is really beautiful, everyone. Can we spend one more minute jotting our ideas down? So I'm going to invite us back together. I know that many of you are still putting your ideas in, and I would invite you to please continue. So when Nika and I were invited to lead a session on equity in the online class, I think at first Nika and I were like, what? Because it's massive. And I think one of the fears, and I'll just speak for myself, is we have all been given this Herculean task, right, of moving our instruction, moving everything that we do on our campuses, in our buildings, into this online environment. And in the rush of this movement, we are that we run the risk of failing to think about something huge like equity, right? And I think that some folks are thinking about equity in terms of students' access to internet and access to technology. But then I think there are other pieces that maybe that are falling through a little bit. And I think namely it's the fact that we're living through a global pandemic. And so when Nika and I were thinking about designing this 1 hour together, we came to this notion of community responsiveness. And what we're hoping we can do in our 45 minutes that remain is to think about how can we be community responsive for our students, for our colleagues, but also for ourselves. That part of being community responsive is recognizing what's going on in our communities. And so I think that all of us, if together we can engage in this inquiry around, well, how are we going to do that? How are we going to be community responsive, given that we're all having this shared incredible experience of having to shelter in place and social distancing? So what we thought we would do is spend a little bit of time at first just building some knowledge and creating some shared language. So we're going to spend 7 minutes and we're going to invite you to do one of two things. And I'll put this in our chat. It's also in our shared document. So one is if you feel like spending some time reading, you will look at a framework for culturally responsive pedagogy, and you'll just read 7 minutes of it. The other option, and we'll make sure we're all on mute if you're going to do it, there is a video featuring Jeff Duncan Andrade, and he talks about culturally responsiveness, and you'll start at 2 minutes and 25 seconds in. So right now, you can pick which one of those two that you want to spend your time on. And let me know if you've got questions. You can put it in the chat, or you can put yourself off mute and let me know what your questions are about this. But you'll pick one. You'll spend 7 minutes either reading or watching. And what we'll ask you to do is just pay attention and notice strong lines. And strong lines are simply things that you love it, you hate it, it confuses you, you don't know what to do with it. So if you could just note that. And then when we come back together, we'll spend a little time in conversation over our strong lines. So I see that there are no questions. And so I'm going to set my timer and let's spend 7 minutes. So if you could find a comfortable place to stop in the next 30 seconds. So let's come back together. We know that we see the strong lines that have already been posted. If you want to keep posting your strong lines and your questions to the chat, but also to our shared document, that would be amazing. What we're going to do right now, though, is go into some smaller groups. So most of you will be in a trio. And what we're going to ask you to do is to share some of your strong lines, but also your questions. So keeping in mind, right, that right now there's this big question of how do we move our students into equitable online environments? And so part of what we're going to inquire into is how do we become community responsive educators, right? So how can the work that we do to create this online environment for students, how can it be community responsive? So we're going to spend 10 minutes in our smaller groups sharing the questions that have come up for you, sharing strong lines. Any questions that you want to say or put into our chat before we get into to our groups? And while you're oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, while we pause for the questions, I just wanted to, in case you've never gone into a breakout room before, you will just get a little button and that says you've been invited to one. You just have to accept it. It will whisk you off into your cyber room. And then we will try to message you and let you know how much time you have left throughout. Lots of times folks are too deep in conversation to really notice those messages. But when it's really, really time to go, you'll get a 60-second countdown. And then at the end of that 60 seconds, you have no choice. You are mercilessly brought back here to the whole group, whether you're done talking or not. So just know that's just how the Zoom works. But we try to give you some warnings so you can bring your conversation to an end. Good?
Awesome. Thanks, Nika.
Okay, well, I don't see any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms. Okay, so I'm going to move Shannon to room 8. I'm going to move Brooklyn to room 8. Bill and Laurel, Melody and Sheila. Salam, can you hear me? Cynthia, can you hear me? Hi, Cynthia. Can you hear me? No. Celia, hello? Hello?
Hi,
Hi, are you just joining us or did you fall out and come back in?
I was going to see what this was about.
Oh, okay, so just joining. So we're about a little bit more than halfway through. And what's happened is we've got, let's see, I'm just trying to figure out where to, let me just go send you some links from our chat, and that will give you a sense of what we've been working on. And so welcome.
Thank you. I was actually just going to sort of audit and look and see because I'm not sure what this is about.
Okay, well, you have time to do that now because people are in breakout rooms. And so they are discussing, we did some introductions, and then we looked at some readings, and oops, I just sent you the, okay, here we go. Then people had a chance to either watch a little bit of video or read a little bit of an article, and now they're in breakout rooms discussing that. And so I'm just putting all these links in the chat so that you can check out the links.
Okay.
And you can, when everyone comes back, you can listen in as you had intended, okay?
Okay.
Alrighty.
So I can just click on chat and I can click on things, right?
Yes,
You can tell
exactly.
I'm not an expert. Okay. All right.
Yes,
Thank you.
no problem. We're all in this together, no worries.
All
Hi,
right.
welcome. Jennifer?
Hi.
Hi, are you
Thank-
just joining or?
Yeah, I'm just joining. I was busy recording videos for the 8 billionth time. I can't make myself stop.
I understand. Yes, it's very, very crazy making. So
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of people just joining us. And so as you're joining, you'll have access to the chat. So I'm just going to give you these links so that you can familiarize yourselves with what we've been up to. And then when people come back, we've got about, I don't know, probably 40, 45 folks in breakout rooms right now. And so as they come back, then you'll be able to kind of hear the discussion. So is everybody seeing these links?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful.
Yes.
I'll give you some moments of peace just to check it out.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, this is impossible. Okay, never mind.
Okay, so just so you all know, I'm bringing the breakout rooms back now. So we'll have our big group back very shortly, within a minute.
So welcome back, everyone. I know we're still waiting on a few folks to join us.
They'll be back within 20 seconds. Like it or not. Okay.
Lauren, I shared a picture on video conferencing norms with my group,
Okay,
and they wanted to see it, so I'm sending it to you. Maybe you can share it. It's just kind of a
Okay.
quick, like, what do you do when you are in a Zoom video conference?
awesome. To my email?
I did, yeah, I sent it there.
Okay. So I'll look for it and then I'll add it to our shared document. But in the meantime, what we were hoping is you could take a look at some of the strong lines and questions that were posted, but also maybe see if there are strong lines and questions that you would want to post as well. And in our time together right now, we thought we would address some of the big questions that are still looming for all of us, right? Because clearly, how we create equitable online learning environments is a topic of ongoing conversation and inquiry. And so we're thinking about how can this component of culturally responsiveness and community responsiveness, how can it help us in our designing and continuing to work with students? So let's look and see, are there questions that we can grapple with together?
One
Hi,
of-
this
oh,
is
go ahead.
Marina here. Can I ask a question to the group? I noticed also in some of our initial sort of thoughts for this class, we talked about how do we reach out to those students who are especially vulnerable, who have disappeared, who have you know, who are maybe, like, for me, it's kind of a bopping thing where they might show up one day and then be gone for a week and not turning things in and just kind of checking in on things, but not really being fully present. So I was wondering, like, I feel like now we are in this, we're like, you know, trying to save drowning people. Like, some are strong enough to swim out on their own and some are just drowning and some have already sunk, and we're just doing this triage, right? But is there sort of a more an approach that where we don't have to also go one by one, you know? Is there an approach where we can address everyone and maybe, again, there shouldn't be a cookie cutter approach, but like we also, you know, feel very strained. Is there something you could recommend or somebody in the group has done that's been effective to reach out to students who are most vulnerable and to help them finish the semester?
Awesome. That's a great question. And can we move to our shared document to see if folks have a response, or in our chat, or if anyone would like to take yourself off mute, you're also welcome to share your ideas.
This is Sarah. I'd love to say one thing on that. I feel like this moment, like all teaching moments, it is calling us to you know, just do whatever the students do need. That's why I feel like teachers are even setting it up. Like, they're like, nope, I'm going to do it synchronously. Like, well, maybe that's not going to work for everybody. Like, I feel like it, but then again, like the burden on us is so heavy. So I feel you, Marina, of like other ways that are more, like, we could capitalize more. Because right now I'm finding it's like, nope, it's sort of individual. I got to figure out what each student needs. I don't know if that's sustainable.
One of the things that I've been doing with my students is to actually just, well, a couple things. One, I use WhatsApp. So I invited all the students to join WhatsApp so that I can connect with them. I have certain messaging that I use, and my titles. Worried is a big one. It actually works really well. And then the ones who showed up, because I do offer, I tell them that it's not required, but I do offer the opportunity for my students to come to the synchronous class if they can. I don't require them to turn on their monitors. I don't require necessarily, any other technology, whatever they can do, like I just welcome them. But I have been meeting with them separately as well. And I just asked them, I was like, what do you need? How can I help you? And we came up with a plan together for the rest of the semester. So based on those conversations with them, because I think it's really important for us to include them in the process, especially when we're thinking about issues of equity.
I wanted to ask the group, and I know it's tough, but it's also really rich because this is what we're dealing with. We're trying to do our best to connect and to build knowledge together remotely. And so, we kind of have to be tenacious and digging in here, I think, and, not just sitting back, but really trying to reach each other and trying to grapple with each other. And so I just wanted to ask the group, is there anything within either of the resources that we just explored, whether it be the article or the video, that we can bring to bear on this wonderful question of, how do we support our most vulnerable students? And also, the question we began with, how are we community responsive? How can we be community responsive at this time? I just wondered if anybody wanted to call out either a golden line or an idea, an insight from one of those two resources.
This is Marari. I watched the video and it's a real powerful video about what education is, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've been looking, because I participate in some Facebook groups where there's a lot of teachers and stuff, and my concern is that there's this real strong desire to get back to this is the content. You need to learn the content. I need to assess you, without really connecting to the heart and the situation that we're all experiencing. And there's students that may be homeless right now, or just talking to you through a phone, or whose family is not able to pay the rent and get food. And it's like, that's what we need to, in my opinion, I made sure that I connected to my students first on that. It's like, okay, let's all breathe together. Are you guys okay? And here are the resources that are available for you. If you need food, if you need Wi-Fi, so our school created a website, a page on their website that has all these resources, free Wi-Fi services and all of that first to take care of them. Because if they're not in that space, they're not going to learn, right? And then the next question is, what are we going to learn? Because is the content, since we are in English as a second language, is learning how to, go to the movies, the right context right now. What is important right now? So it's really reframing the material that I'm teaching to help my students engage and be their best selves in this hard situation, because I'm also trying to do the same thing, Right. So being kind, I think that's one of the things that I've tried to help my teachers and help my students, is just kind of be kind to yourself and take care of yourself first. And like what was shared, offering different ways of connecting synchronously and asynchronously, and not being so hard on, you can't cheat, and those models, I think, need to be revisited, especially during this time.
Thank you, Marari. Thanks for that question, Nika. One of the things that I've really been sort of reflecting on lately is it's wonderful for us to be community responsive, but I think there's a piece we think about where we think about it's the individual being community responsive. And lately I've been thinking about how do we do this work in community? And I think part of what happens is like all of us right now are really worried about our students, but we also have other folks on campus who are doing this work too. And so one of the big questions I have is like, how do I partner with counseling? How do I partner with financial aid? And how do I partner with just different groups on campus so that together we can be working to help our individual students? And I think that that could be a really great question for us to engage our colleagues with. And Keelan, I see that you said that's what we were talking about in your session. Do you want to say more?
Yes, Laurel Jean and Cynthia and I were together in the breakout room, and we were just talking about that because Cynthia works in a program. And so I was saying that it's important for the faculty to recognize also what the students are saying, and also for all of us to be talking so that we can share with each other, because the students don't know. I've been inviting my students to some of the sessions, and they've been really surprised, like at how it's been really helpful for them to see how much people are preparing. So I think that, as you know, and also that we're not experts and you know, all those kind of things, so that they feel more comfortable. So I think the community is really, really important for us to be able to work together and with a common goal.
Thanks, Keelan. Any other ideas or things that you have been doing?
Something I read quick in the text was about, you know, not assuming we have to motivate students. That's so passive, like, but so actually what it's striking me, this is like so much tapping into what is their motivation, and that we have to do that always and in now in particular, and understand that that's actually cultural and not to just have my frame of what engagement and motivation should look like.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also I think recognizing too that that we are living in this shared experience of incredible stress and uncertainty. And the idea that it's going to be status quo, continue as usual for ourselves. I mean, I think there's pressure that people are putting on themselves, and then also on students, right? And as Keelan was talking, it also reminded me, you know, most of our institutions spent a lot of money on things like early alert systems, right? And we invested all this time and energy into it. And this to me seems like a really wonderful moment for us to take a look at what was done and what's really good about our early alert. Because if you ask me, every single student right now needs to be in some kind of early alert program, right? And not just students, I think our colleagues as well. And so for me, it's this really big question right now about how are we going to fill in and connect to each other in ways that really honor and acknowledge what's happening. But also, I think I see, Nika, that we are at 4 minutes before we are supposed to end. So, so this shared document it's going to remain open. And I'm hoping that we can continue our conversation. So as more questions come up, you can put them there, more resources, because I think we're going to find that throughout this semester and potentially beyond, right? Because even when we do come back together in face-to-face environments, we're still going to be grappling with what's happening. And so it would be wonderful if we could continue this conversation. But I'm going to turn things over to Nika. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, and so thank you so much, Lauren. And I just wanted to make a note really fast that towards the bottom of our shared document, there's just a little table, and it's the today I got and I still need. This is a space for you to give us some quick feedback. So we really appreciate you taking the time to do that, giving us a glimpse in. With such a large group, we didn't get to hear from everybody, but there is a way in which we can use that, that Google Doc to hear from you. Also on the screen right now are just some next steps. And so there are additional resources and more Zooms like these and more developing all the time. And if you have an idea for something that you would like to facilitate or something that you would like to see facilitated by others, you just let us know. That's 3CSN is practitioners designing for practitioners. And so, you know, we want to hear from you. We want to leverage all the talent that's out there. This Padlet that Keelan has been managing is this ginormous kind of space for every resource you can think of. So we keep adding to it as you bring us your brilliant resources. And I guess the thought partner sessions that are part of the series, that is what I was saying earlier, that you too can facilitate a Zoom with support from 3CSN. And if you have questions or you want to communicate, just go ahead and send an email to info@3csn.org. That's the best way to do that. And so thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Thank you so much for taking the time to add some notes onto that Google Doc so that we can continue to make sure that every time we have the privilege of your time, 1 minute, 1 hour, we want to make sure that it's time well spent. We respect you, and we want to continue to have the honor of your engagement. So thank you so much for letting us know. And so that means too, if you have complaints, just shout them out. We can do better. We can always do better. Thank you again so much for trusting us with your time.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
When do we have more meetings on equity? For some reason, I have on my calendar on the 2nd and on the 6th.
Well,
Is
we
that
have,
correct?
for those of us in the Equity 101 online course right now, which I meant to mention as well, if you want to be in a more in-depth exploration, we have a 7-week online course that 3CSN offers called Equity 101. And some of us are in that right now. So we have our own kind of like course specific Zooms. And then this one was like a big open to everybody Zoom. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
So if you're still confused, just email me or Lauren and we can clarify what's what. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other last questions or thoughts?
Thank you all for coming. I so appreciate being in community, learning together. If anyone didn't sign in, just please do in the chat. And thank you all.
Okay, that's a wrap.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.